इसमें क्लिक कहाँ करना है? इसमें क्लिक तो हो ही नहीं पा रहा है इसमें।
Good afternoon, everyone.
आपके में सही नहीं है ना मैसेज।
I welcome you all on this auspicious occasion of Constitution Day
मैं इससे बोलूँ।
to attend the webinar organized by Vasudev College of Law. We want to celebrate this event by discussing on one of the core substance or core issue which the Constitution has given to us, the Constitution values. So the topic for today and today's webinar is role of judiciary in preserving the constitutional values. So first of all, I would like to brief you about what are the things which are included in constitutional values. Constitutional values includes federalism, and federalism more so what we call cooperative federalism, then free speech, justice, social, economic and political, then we have equality of opportunity and of outcome and of opportunity even, and then one of the basic principles which weaves the fabric of this country together, the principle of secularism, which has kept us progressive all through ups and downs in this scenario, independence. Then free and fair election, the democratic principle and a democracy is basically based on free and fair election. If you don't have free and fair election, you can see what has been the state of countries in Africa and South America which do not have free election. So then another important and very important, one of the most important points is independence of judiciary and separation of powers. So these are the basic constitutional values which we consider the basic principles of our constitution, and this same constitution with an amendment included the fundamental duties in article 51 capital A, and these duties, the first duty is to abide by the constitution and respect its ideals and institutions, the national flag and the national anthem. So we see that the national institutions, the constitutional institutions and the ideals of the constitution are very basic fundamental duty of each and every person in this country, each and every person. And so we are going to discuss the role of judiciary, who is considered as the custodian of the Indian constitution. When you can imagine that when each and every citizen has a duty to follow and cherish and abide by the ideals of the constitution, then you carve out or find out like what should be the role of the judiciary, who is the custodian. It is so judiciary stands in the driver's seat here. Now the role of judiciary, we should understand the role of judiciary, that judiciary is important because however good a constitution may be, however good a constitution of a country may be, it is the people who are implementing it, it is the people who are implementing it responsible for its betterment or its good health. Because if the people are bad, it will prove to be bad. And however bad a constitution may be, even if a constitution is bad, we can see that if the people are good, the people who are implementing it are good, then they can achieve wonders, they can do wonders. And so here we are in this webinar discussing the role of judiciary in preserving the constitutional values. We have seen that a plethora of judgments have been passed by the Supreme Court to uphold the constitutional values and the respect for constitution. And most importantly, Keshwanand Bharti case, which says about the basic structure doctrine. And I would like to say, and I would like to mention here that the judiciary took a very intelligent step by enacting this doctrine of basic structure. It is this doctrine that gives the power or controls the power and gives the control to the judiciary so that it can keep the constitutional values intact. Because if it is not done, if the constitutional values are not kept together, the nation would break into pieces. The things, the noble ideals which led to the freedom struggle and the independence of India would break away like a pack of cards, like a house of cards. So it is very important that these constitutional values are preserved and upheld high and with full dignity and honor, that the country remains progressive and the country remains intact and does not break away and does not become a Balkan state. Now, why we are celebrating this day? Why we are celebrating this day is because the constitution was signed. Basically, the preamble reads that we, the people of India, hereby do enact, adopt, and give to ourselves this constitution. Now, since we gave the constitution to ourselves on this day in the year 1949, so it has been marked as Constitution Day and a red letter day in India's modern history. Now, I would like to introduce the guests we have, the speakers we have. First of all, I would like to introduce Mr. Umesh Joshi. Mr. Umesh Joshi is a senior member in the Permanent Lok Adalat of Udham Singh Nagar district. He's a very able person and he has led to a lot of work, and he has led the change, like the shift of balance from the regular courts to Lok Adalat, and made up in this institution very renowned in the region. Then we have Mr. Imran Muhammad Khan sir. He's a civil judge senior division in the Nainital district, and he is the secretary of the District Legal Services Authority of Nainital. And he has been a pioneer in spreading awareness about ADR and allowing the people and helping the people to adopt the mechanisms of arbitration, conciliation, and so on and so forth. And then we have Sharik Khan sir. Sorry, my mistake. We have Mr. Sharik Ahmad Abbasi sir. He's a renowned lawyer of the Supreme Court. He has been practicing since more than a decade. He's a pass out from the prestigious Aligarh Muslim University, and then he pursued his masters from the very renowned National Law Institute University, Bhopal. So we have the very prestigious people today with us, and then we have along with Mr. Kartikeya sir. He is an advocate of the Uttarakhand High Court in Nainital, and then we also have Shakti sir, Shakti Singh Rathore, who is also an advocate in the Nainital High Court. So these are the guests we have today. The first address would be made by Mr. Umesh Joshi. I would like to invite Mr. Umesh sir to give his address. Umesh sir, please. Umesh sir, kindly, can you hear us, please? I guess we have a connection problem and some network issue. Mr. Umesh Joshi is unavailable as it is apparent. I guess we will have to improvise the speaking order. Would I seek permission from Sharik Ahmad sir to come forth and put his point of view on the role of judiciary in preserving the constitutional values? Sharik sir, can you please take over the stage?
Sure.
Thank you so much, Sharik sir. Thank you so much.
First of all, I would like to extend my thanks to Mr. Prateek Dwivedi, Assistant Professor in Vasudev College of Law, and the management who invited me to share my views and opinion on this valuable topic, that is
Rule of
in preserving the constitutional values. And the occasion is very momentous occasion. As we all know that today is the Law Day. That's 26th of November 2000. We are celebrating Law Day. It's a momentous occasion, and this is a anniversary of such an event when we adopted the constitution of our country, the day on which our founding fathers subscribed to this document by signing the same and unfolding the philosophy of justice, social, economic, and political for the governance of free India. We have every reason to feel proud of this occasion and to celebrate this unique occasion. We take this opportunity to thank the founding fathers of our constitution for this document who spent a good deal of their time and energy in giving shape to this Suprema Lex, that is the supreme law of the country, which has served as a guiding light not only to the people of this country, but several other Commonwealth countries and several other third world countries have imbibed values from our constitution. Coming back to the topic, I would say that it's a very relevant topic nowadays, and what we see as a practitioner before the highest court of the country, what we very often witness now, that whenever
So, Sharik sir, kindly unmute your mic. It has been muted somehow. Kindly unmute it.
should I start from the beginning?
No, sir. From just you just missed the last few lines, like 2-3 lines.
Okay, so I would just say that as a practitioner of law before the highest court of the country, we very often enter into a debate where we hear a divergent opinion that a, whenever a particular single party dominates the whole political scenario, then the judiciary is under some kind of pressure. We have seen this in the 70s when under Srimati Indira Gandhi, judiciary felt pressure, and there were a lot of churning.
Sorry, there's some network issue. We are not able to hear the words of Sharik sir.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now we can hear you.
At my end, there is no issue. I can hear you.
Sir, okay, sir. Now we are fine to go. You can continue.
Please mute yourself. Your voice is resonating. Should I start?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. You can start, sir.
So there is a lot of disturbance.
Sir, some of the participant, I guess some of the participant. I request all the participants to kindly mute your mics.
Please mute everybody.
So that we might be able to hear the guests properly. Thank you so much. Sharik sir, kindly continue your address.
Just coming back to the topic of the day, role of judiciary in preserving the constitutional values, I would say that the most important constitutional value which our judiciary has sought to protect is the rule of law. The spirit of rule of law, as we have seen consistently how Supreme Court of the country has tried to uphold the spirit of rule of law by giving authoritative pronouncements for upholding the spirit of rule of law. And as we all know that rule of law and judicial independence are sine qua non for a functioning of a vibrant and a efficient democracy. Our founding fathers were very clear when they were about to write the Constitution of India. They were very learned people. They had the understanding that unless and until we ensure independent judiciary for enforcement of their fundamental rights and for protecting the constitutional morality and the constitutional values, the cherished goals of the preamble and the constitutional objectives would not be achieved. Therefore, they devised a mechanism for independence of judiciary, and that independence of judiciary has allowed us to go and to be much ahead of all those countries who attained independence simultaneously when we got independence in the year 1947. As we all know that unless unless there is a unless there is judicial independence, all the rights, whatever has been inscribed in the constitution, they all would be promises. Nothing would be of any substance. I'm sorry. There is some disturbance. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Kindly continue.
There is a lot of disturbance. Hello.
Hello.
Sir,
I would
issue,
request
network
all the
issue.
participants to kindly mute off their mics, because due to your unmuted mics, we will not be able to clearly hear the guests. Kindly, I request the participants to mute their mics, because it is creating a lot of trouble for our speakers. Sir, is it fine, sir?
Yes, it is fine. Yes, I would just emphasize more
Yes,
on
sir.
how
Sorry
how
for the
the
disturbance, sir.
how the
Sorry for the
spirit
disturbance.
of rule of law. I would emphasize more on how the spirit of rule of law has been imbibed and incorporated in our constitutional mechanism by the founding fathers of our constitution. And I would really like to share one very important constitutional development, which very few authors have mentioned, that when we were about to um, insert Article 21 of the Constitution of India, we were just making it on the pattern of the United States Constitution. No person shall be deprived of his life and personal liberty except due process of law. And when the constitutional advisor to the Constituent Assembly, Mr. B.N. Rao, visited United States of America and had a meeting with Justice Felix Frankfurter, the then Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, he advised Mr. B.N. Rao to exclude this whole phrase due process of law, because it has a very wide ambit. And his suggestion was that if you choose to retain it in your constitution, then your courts would be flooded with the litigation. That he was of the opinion that if you retain this due process of law phrase in your constitution, then there would be a lot of litigation seeking enforcement of the fundamental right from the state. And therefore, at that point of time, our framers of the constitution preferred to use procedure established by law, which was borrowed from the Japanese constitution way back in 1947. And as I have already said, that my main focus would be on the spirit of the rule of law, how the rule of law mechanism has a very important bearing on enforcing all the constitutional values. If we have got the system of vibrant democratic governance, then we first of all need to ensure that there has to be a proper mechanism for enforcing rule of law. Therefore, I would just come back to the main theme that after after this an enforcement of the constitution, when the word procedure established by law was inserted and incorporated in Article 21 of the Constitution of India, what happened that this provision, Article 21, authorized the state or the union government to formulate any law which could have deprived citizens life or personal liberty by framing any kind of law, by enacting any kind of law. Therefore, we have seen what happened in A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras, where it was said that law does not law, if a law prescribes provisions for curtailing the liberty of the citizens, then the law does not require to be just, fair, and reasonable. And therefore, we continued to follow this to follow this sequence for at least 2 decades. However, this was overturned. This whole idea of law not being fair, reasonable, and just was overturned by Honorable Supreme Court in Maneka Gandhi versus Union of India, where it was in an unequivocal terms, it was stated that if a law deprives a citizen's right to life and personal liberty, then that law has to be fair, reasonable, just. Any law which does not inspire confidence and does not meet out the standards and the tests laid down in Article 14, 19, and 21, that law is liable to be struck down if it deprives citizens' right to life and personal liberty. Therefore, after this uh, uh, interpretation of a very huge magnitude, the Supreme Court widened the ambit of Article 21, read with other provisions of the Constitution of India, and therefore a whole gamut of jurisprudence emerged from Article 21 of the Constitution of India. Whatever we have in our Constitution, whatever we have as interpreted by the Honorable Supreme Court in the post Maneka Gandhi scenario, what we see and witness is that a whole gamut of jurisprudence have been developed by the Honorable Supreme Court of India, be it labor rights jurisprudence, be it environmental law jurisprudence, be it human rights law jurisprudence, be it gender justice provisions, etc., etc. It all started when if we just go back to the background of Keshavananda Bharati, that how Mr. Dwivedi was telling that what are those values which have to be preserved, which came to be known in Keshavananda Bharati as basic structure of the Constitution of India: cooperative federalism, secularism, equality, social justice. All such concepts first of all came into existence in the constitutional history through Kesavananda Bharati's judgment. And therefore, after the pronouncement of this judgment, Supreme Court got an opportunity in Maneka Gandhi to widen the horizons of Article 21 of the Constitution of India. And since then, I along with so many other students of law would be of this opinion that after such some 2 or 3 judgments like this, we our Supreme Court assumed a very important role, and by adopting to judicial activism, it has filled certain void which was created by the executive inaction. And we must know that Indian Supreme Court has not only exercised its right to has not exercised its power not only for the enforcement of the fundamental rights of the citizens of the country, but also for enforcing the good governance spirit and mechanism into the whole executive inaction for an executive inaction of the state governments by the union government, etc. And it is very important that an independent judiciary should ensure, should definitely remain, um, should definitely remain insulated from the executive interference as far as possible. There are people are of the opinion that judiciary has assumed assumed lot of powers by giving a expansionist interpretation to the provisions of the Constitution. It has arrogated itself so many powers which does not even belong to it. But I would say, and I must say, that it's only because of the approach of the Honorable Supreme Court of India that the citizens of this country feel and they are of the opinion that whatever wrong is, if a wrong is done to them by any wing of the government, then it's the judiciary which would come to its rescue. And the role and the approach of the Honorable Supreme Court and different high courts at different intervals of time have proved, have established beyond reasonable doubt that it's the judiciary of the country which inspires so much confidence in the ordinary citizen of the country. But uh, I have spoken about this Keshwananda Bharti and Menka Gandhi case. But hello, can you hear me, friends?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
We can. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
So I've spoken on Keshwananda Bharti and Menka Gandhi, but I would also like to emphasize one very important case law, which I think law schools must also educate their students on this important case law, and that is State of Madras versus V.G. Rao. It's a very important case law, and in this judgment, just Chief Justice Patanjali Shastri, as his lordship then was, while writing a judgment for a 5-judge constitution bench, invoked this concept of Supreme Court being the sentinel on the queue wife for the citizens of the country. Supreme Court is a guardian, is a watchful guardian of the citizens of the country whenever their rights are going to be infringed. And the facts of the case are that Mr. V.G. Rao, who had left Leanings, he was running an organization for educating the people and making them aware of their political and civil rights. And a law was invoked against him, and a 1908 Criminal Law Amendment Act was invoked against him in order to penalize him and to just control his political and civil activities. And he challenged this before the Madras High Court. Madras High Court struck down whatever law was invoked against him. Madras High Court came to his rescue. When the state came into a special leave petition before the Supreme Court of India, Supreme Court even widened the horizons of the Madras High Court judgment. And then this very important observation of Justice Patanjali Shastri came, that Supreme Court is the sentinel on the queue wife of this country, and therefore we must say that Supreme Court or the high courts of the country have been playing very important role in preserving the constitutional values of the country. And as Prateek rightfully said, that free and fair elections are also one of the important components of ensuring a vibrant democratic governance in the country. And as of late, recently in the month of June, the Supreme Court, a 3-judge bench, reiterated this in Lakshmi Singh's case, that free and fair elections are very important for a vibrant democracy. And this has been the approach of the court, that whenever the courts are confronted with such type of questions, court has risen to the occasion and has ensured that these important constitutional values are protected. However, unfortunately, there are certain allegations have started coming against the judiciary since the last 5-6 years. That judiciary is judiciary. There has been allegation, there has been murmurs that judiciary is not exercising its powers in a manner in which it should exercise, and it is being equated with the Supreme Court is being equated with the same kind of complexion which it had in the years of emergency. And however, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with this, and I'm of the firm opinion that whenever it is required, the Supreme Court has come to the rescue of the citizens of the country. It has risen to the occasion. As I said, it has come forward to preserve the basic constitutional values which it is expected to uphold. And I must say that again, I would like to quote from Mr. Dwivedi's opening talk, that a constitution is as good as we the people are, as Dr. Ambedkar rightly said when the constitution was being drafted. And in his concluding speech, Dr. Ambedkar was of this opinion that a constitution can be as good as we the people, we the citizens of the country are. If the constitution is excellent, the constitution is exceptional. However, if the people don't implement, if the people don't follow the tenets of the constitution in the right spirit, if they don't adhere to the spirit of the rule of law, then the constitution would fail. And if the constitution is not good, but if the people who are implementing it, they understand the nitty-gritties of the governance, democratic governance, then the constitution is bound to get success. And therefore its onus lies more upon we the people of India to be vigilant about our rights, to be careful about our rights, to be aware about our rights. With these words, I would like to congratulate the college management, the faculty members, the students who thought about celebrating this Red Letter Day. And I must say my thanks to the college management. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Sharik sir. We are highly obliged that you gave us your precious time to our college, and you spoke on the occasion, and you gave us so good insight about the constitution and about the happenings which the Supreme Court has been through since even before the during the framing of the constitution and after that. So we stand enriched after your address with our knowledge of the constitution and its values. Thank you so much, sir. We are really highly obliged. We will always be means like in touch with you for such kind of things. Kindly keep lending us our time.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I would like to say one more thing, that two of the speakers of this occasion are my seniors, Mr. Muhammad Imran, civil judge, Uttarakhand Judicial Service. He was my senior, 1 year senior in my LLB days in Aligarh Muslim University. And Mr. Kartikeya Hari Gupta, who has a flourishing practice in Uttarakhand High Court, Nainital. He was 2 years senior to me, and we both worked as joint secretary of the AMU Law Society during our LLB days. And I would definitely like to hear them on their on this aspect. I once again thank you, all of you, for inviting me. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to invite Mr. Imran Muhammad Khan, Civil Judge, Senior Division, Nainital District, and the Secretary of District Legal Services Authority, Nainital. Imran sir, kindly take over the stage and enlighten us. Imran sir, can you hear me? It seems Imran sir is not connected somehow. He's is connected on the platform, but I guess he is not able to hear my voice. So we understand that even the fundamental duties, the first one which says that we should abide by the constitutional ideals, we have a second one which says that we should cherish the noble ideals which led to the independence of the country. And these are the ideals which have led us to be a successful democracy. So since Imran sir is not available right now, I would like to prepone the address of Advocate Shakti sir. Shakti sir, kindly take over the stage and deliver your address. Shakti sir, please. Welcome, sir.
Hello, good evening, all of you. Oh, I'm sorry, it's good afternoon, in fact. So, I'm so delighted that I've been called here to speak something as far as this great day is concerned. As far as my little experience of law is concerned, I'll tell you something which interests you. I'll not tell you something which, because prior to me, a great speech has been delivered by Mr. Sharik. He's outlined some of the great things as far as the working of court is concerned. However, I'll speak something which is quite parallel and similar to that, but I'll give you some as far as the general conception of the constitution is concerned. Now, first of all, I just wish to congratulate all of you being a citizen of India on this day. This is a day of importance as far as the democracy is concerned, because constitution is a document primarily which will enlighten you and tell you something which embodied and which inherent in yourself and feel yourself free. Now let me explain myself what is feel yourself free. Now, prior to independence, we don't have adult franchise, we don't have a representation, and we don't have, so to say, a dignified right as an Indian. And then after, when this great document came, however, some people object that most of it has been taken from Government of India Act. It may be true, but it may not be true academically, shall I say. So the moment this constitution embodied, so it has given us some rights, it has given us some responsibility, and it has given us something which really makes democracy meaningful. Now let me explain you myself, by a judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court. You must be aware of a judgment which is Menaka Gandhi versus. In the Menaka Gandhi judgment, it's a celebrated judgment, and in Menaka Gandhi judgment, the A.K. Gopalan case of 1915 was overruled. So, if anyone here is a law student, so they may recall that in A.K. Gopalan, May 9, 1950, Honorable Supreme Court has said, by quoting the provision of Article 21, procedure established by law. It says liberty can be taken away if a process established by law. Now let me again myself. If suppose authority come to me, so to say, if police come to me and confine me and arrest me and without a reason, and they say I have authority of law, you can be arrested without giving a reason. And this is as a matter of a written law, so your arrest is justified. So Supreme Court said on May 9, 1950 that since the process is established by law, hence your now there is a concept as far as the many jurists have said that law will always remain in the process of making. Law is subject of evolution. So in 1957, the principle which has been established, declared by Honorable Supreme Court in Menaka Gandhi, it has been said no, it is not a real interpretation of Article 21. It is very important. Supreme Court said the law procedure established by law must be just and proper and reasonable. Now these three words have a very significant meaning: just, proper, and reasonable. So justness means it must be fair, it must be scaled on the scale of rationality, it must be scaled on the scale of, so to say, justness of the law, and if it is so, then it passes the muster and then it will be constitutional. So nowadays, if anybody comes to you, or nowadays if suppose anybody liberty is confined, so to say, on the basis of any law, then that man has a right to question that law before the Honorable Court of Record and say, since my confinement is My confinement may be valid, but it is not valid since the law is not valid. So the law which confined your liberty can pass the test of reasonableness, justness, and properness. Now, this justness and properness is a matter of perception. It may be a matter of morality, because as far as the concept of constitutionalism is concerned, I have a great, I just want to say something, that rule of law is not something which is not actually in our constitution. Now, supposing I say, if a government of India tomorrow comes with an act and says that nobody is allowed to park their car outside their house, and if you do so, you shall be prosecuted under a law. So if somebody is subjected to that kind of action, and authorities come to him and say, look, this is a prohibited conduct and you will not do that. So even then you can challenge this before the Honorable Court of Record, High Courts and Supreme Court, and say this is against just and properness as declared by in the judgment of Maneka Gandhi. Now, this justness, this fairness is varied from place to place, time to time, and subject to subject, because constitution is basically principle, and principle is a flexible kind of a nature. Had it not been flexible, then in right to life, right to dignity will never be added. Had it not been flexible, then in right to life, right to food had not been included. Had it not been flexible, then right to privacy would not be included. So basically, part 3 is not law. Part 3 is something which scales the law. Part 3 is something which basically says that how a law should be. Part 3 is something which basically say how governance will go. And in this, how governance can go, all these things can be done by a court. Scaling can be done by the Honorable Court by a medium of a judicial review, which we must all know that in high courts we have power of 2 to 6 as a writ jurisdiction, in which we can enforcement of a fundamental right, part 3, as Mr. Sharik has just said. And you can also come before the Honorable High Court in 2 to 6 if there is any statutory right is being violated. And then we also have a remedy of a judicial review before Honorable Supreme Court as Article 32. Article 32 is somewhat different and somewhat important, because Article 32 is mentioned by Baba Saheb that it is be the whole and soul of the Constitution, and enforcing your right. Now this is a point to be noted. Enforcing your right by opting a remedy of Article 32 is itself is a fundamental right. So procedurally, substantially, Article 32 is a fundamental right. So this is the system how the Constitution is interpreted. And let me say you one peculiar development. One of the great judgments, since the topic of the day is that the contribution of judiciary as far as the constitutional values are concerned. So basically, constitutional value, as I told you, is not mere law, because law is always in a process of making. Law is always rigid.
Shakti sir will be delivering it from my phone.
I'm sorry, I think my connection has been lost. So I was elaborating a very important point which we face day in, day out in the court of law, that what I was saying, I just want to recall what I was saying just now. So I was elaborating on the point that the judicial review is concerned. It is basically a tool which is given to the Honorable High Courts and Supreme Court in order to safeguard the liberties, as every right which is in Part 3. However, it has made so technical because at this moment it is exclusively available to the lawyers, or it is exclusively made available to the lawyers or the people who are in law, or the people who are going to be a judicial officer. But unfortunately, it has not been added as a compulsory syllabus up to class 10th or 12th. Had it been, then situation would be a bit more aware. Because Constitution is a very lengthy document. The reason for its length, because the fabric of India is a country which has a different language, different culture, different dressing, different fooding. So this kind of a lengthy constitution is needed as far as the fabric of India is concerned. However, at its very inception, when this constitution was given to the people of India, it has been said by the many American English authors that this constitution will fall, this will not do anything, and it will not work. But apart from all these things, this constitution has kept head high of every citizen, and it has been consistently working. It has given a scope of change in the conduct by the way of constitutional amendment, because as I told you, the principle has been implanted in constitution that as and when it is a need, a law should be according to that principle. Now, I was telling you a peculiar development as far as the Indian legal system is concerned, which is known as public interest litigation. You must have all aware of it. In a public interest litigation, Justice Bhagwati, while recognizing this concept that the rule of locus standi is very relaxed, and if any class, any people, any organization whose any right is being violated, and if they are not in a position, whatever it may be, approach the court of law, then any man acting bona fide can approach the court and say, this is the matter and this is the violation of right. And mind you all, honorable courts are active very actively. Courts are active so much actively that in many times it has been criticized by the court. The court is acting on a hyperactive mode, but as the case may be, because this knocking of court's door by this public interest petitions, it has become a expansion because now people are getting aware, and in the country of India, resources are so scarce that violation is concerned, violation is to the maximum. Now, second thing I just want to tell you, I think I have more 5 minutes more. No? The second thing which I just want to tell you that I just want to discuss one of the great judgment which is delivered by Honorable Supreme Court, which is Keshwananda. And basically Keshwananda says, as Mr. Ksharik has said, Keshwananda says that amendment can be done, but amendment can never be against part 3 basic structure. Now, as I told you, the principle of a justice cannot be changed. Now, what is principle? Liberty, equality, and fraternity. And it has been argued on a very different scale from time to time. So amendment is permissible, but you cannot take away the principle. You cannot take away the basic structure doctrine. As Supreme Court has said that life without dignity is meaningless. So dignity, all dignified right has been included in right to life. And latestly, we see that right to privacy has also included in right to life. Supreme Court has said to lead a dignified life, right to privacy is also a part of it. So now we have a new option. We can also question the authorities who are taking our data and who are profiling that. So that cannot be done by opting this right to privacy, because we have a right to privacy. So that may be done from time to time. Let the time, because as I told you, law will always remain in the process of making. So by these words, I just congratulate all of you, and I wish to say read the Constitution, and I think I am audible to all of you. I think I'm audible to all of you.
सर साउंड ब्रेक हो रहा है आपका बहुत.
So by these words, I would again congratulate all of you And since the majority of people are lawyers over here, so keep a feeling of constitutionalism, read the document, work hard, and once again, congratulations of the day. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shakti sir. We are highly obliged for your address and letting us your precious time. Now I would like to invite Mr. Umesh Joshi sir to give us our address and to enlighten us with his knowledgeable words. Umesh Joshi sir, kindly take over the stage. उमेश सर काइंडली अनम्यूट योर माइक प्लीज, अपना माइक अनम्यूट करिए। माइक देखिए, अनम्यूट करने का ऑप्शन आपके पास अवेलेबल होगा। सामने माइक जैसा एक फिगर बना होगा, उस पर आप क्लिक करेंगे तो माइक अनम्यूट होगा। स्क्रीन पे दबाएं।
हेलो।
यस सर। यस सर। हाँ सर। यस सर, हो गया है, हम आपको सुन पा रहे हैं। जी सर।
ठीक है। रेस्पेक्टेड ऑल पर्सन, बहुत अच्छा आप लोगों के द्वारा आज पर ये जो संविधान दिवस पर, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डे पर यहाँ पर एक वर्चुअल मीटिंग की जा रही है। इसके लिए मैं विद्यालय के चेयरमैन भाई चंद्रशेखर जोशी और समस्त एडवोकेट साथियों को हार्दिक बधाई देते हुए धन्यवाद दूंगा। हेलो हेलो।
यस सर, प्लीज बोलते रहें, हम सुन पा रहे हैं आपको।
हमें आपकी आवाज आ रही है।
अच्छा, ओके, थैंक यू। जैसे कि आपको पता है और समस्त पूरे भारत वर्ष की जनता जानती है, 26 जनवरी को जो ये संविधान लागू हुआ था देश में सन 1900, तो 26 नवंबर को आज के दिन सन 1949 में 1949 में किया गया था। भारत के जो संविधान सभा डॉक्टर भीमराव अम्बेडकर जी के नेतृत्व में बनाई गई थी। इसमें भारत के प्रथम कानून मंत्री के रूप में उन्हें काम करने का अवसर प्राप्त हुआ था और जो संविधान की प्रारूप कमेटी थी उसके वो मुख्य वास्तुकार थे। यह हमारे देश का एक बहुत गौरवशाली पल था, जबकि उनको एक बहुत ही समाज के एक छोटे से वर्ग से लेकर ऊपर पहुंचे थे। यह हमारी संविधान की जो विशिष्टता थी। भारत का संविधान, जैसा कि आप सब जानते हैं, भारत का संविधान पूरी दुनिया में अनोखा है। जब भारत के संविधान को अपनाया गया तब भारत के नागरिकों ने शांति, शिष्टता और प्रगति के साथ एक नए संवैधानिक, वैज्ञानिक, स्वराज और आधुनिक भारत में प्रवेश किया था। इसका पहला वर्णन ग्रानविले ऑस्टिन ने सामाजिक क्रांति को प्रदान करने के लिए बताया था। भारतीय संविधान के प्रति यह संविधान में न्यायपालिका को अधिकार दिया गया, जिसमें कि न्याय सर्वोच्च रूप में दिया गया है कि वो शिकायतों की जांच करें और अगर क्राइम हुआ है तो अपराधी को सरकार जो है कोर्ट में पेश करे। तो न्यायिक सक्रियता के बारे में जैसा कहा जाता है कि ओवर आज सक्रियता हो गई है, लेकिन मेरा मानना है कि इसमें जुडिशरी ने बहुत ही कंट्रोल किया, क्योंकि राजनेताओं का जो एक वर्ग है उसमें भ्रष्टाचार और अपराधी किस्म के लोग जो उसमें आ गए, जो कि मुख्य काम कार्यपालिका का था, वो देश की जनता को ये लगा कि नेतृत्व ने उनके साथ विश्वासघात किया है। भ्रष्ट अधिकारी, तस्करी नेताओं और अपराधियों ने अपने अपने लाभ सिद्ध करने के लिए हमारे लोकतंत्र का अपहरण कर लिया। इस संविधान की प्रस्तावना में न्याय को सबसे ऊंचा स्थान दिया गया था। गणतंत्र का जो बनाया गया था उसका पहला उद्देश्य यही था कि नागरिकों को सामाजिक, आर्थिक और राजनीतिक न्याय दिलाना, जिसके लिए संविधान में न्यायपालिका ने अपनी पूरी भूमिका के साथ न्याय किया। अब लोग कहते हैं कि कुछ लोग जो आलोचक हैं ये कहते हैं कि ओवर न्यायिक सक्रियता करी जुडिशरी ने, तो मेरा अपना मानना है कि संविधान के अनुसार न्यायपालिका का काम है कि शिकायतों की जांच करे और क्राइम यदि हुआ है तो अपराधी को कोर्ट में पेश करे। सीबीआई, इंस्पेक्टर, ये सब काम कार्यपालिका के माध्यम से होते हैं। अब सरकार कोर्ट में इतना भी नहीं कर पाई, असमर्थ हो गई, तो हम तो न्यायपालिका को तो उसके अनुसार काम करना पड़ेगा, कानून के अनुसार, जिससे कि पता चले कि इस देश में कोई कोर्ट भी है। लेकिन राजनीतिक नेताओं से जुड़े हुए इन तमाम लोगों ने, चाहे वो अफसर हों, इन तमाम मामलों में शिथिलता बरती, जो कि राजनेताओं का एक वर्ग जो कि ये चाहता था कि भ्रष्टाचार के अपराधी को दूसरा वर्ग जो कि इन्हीं के में मिला हुआ था कि उसके किए की सजा उसको नहीं दिलाना चाहता था। लेकिन जब मामला कोर्ट में आ गया, कोर्ट ने अपने कर्तव्य से कैसे आंखें मूंद सकती थी। तो जो लोग ये कहते हैं कि न्यायिक ओवर सक्रियता हुई, मैं उनसे ये सहमत नहीं हूँ। और जुडिशरी ने इसमें बिल्कुल सही रोल अपनाया, जो कि हमें हमारा आज का मुख्य पर्पज है। विभिन्न जो देश की आजादी के बाद कुछ वर्षों के बाद ही विभिन्न न्यायिक स्वार्थ और निर्वाचित जनप्रतिनिधि और प्रशासक हम नागरिकों के हितों और गरिमा की रक्षा करने के साथ साथ हमें न्याय दिलाने में भी वो अक्षम रहे। तो इस कार्यपालिका और विधायिका इसमें चुप्पी साधी रही। नेताओं, मंत्रियों और अफसरों के कुकृत्यों और भ्रष्ट आचरण पर ये सब पर्दा डालते रहे। इसमें न्यायपालिका ने अपने न्यायिक पुनरावलोकन की शक्ति के तहत कई बार अपने संसद के निर्णयों को भी प्रभावित किया, और जबकि संसद ने जो कोर्ट में निर्णय हुए उनको संविधान के में परिवर्तन लाने के लिए एक परिवर्तन लाकर उसमें अमेंडमेंट ला करके न्यायालय के निर्णयों को सूक्ष्म करने का काम कर दिया। जब कार्यपालिका को यह लगा कि न्यायपालिका हमारे अनुसार नहीं चल रही है, चाहे वो कोई गोलकनाथ बनाम पंजाब विवाद हो, केशवानंद भारतीय बनाम पंजाब केरल बनाम केरल हो, म्यांमार बनाम भारत संघ, मिनर्वा मिल्स बनाम भारत संघ में अगर हम देखते हैं तो यही सारी स्थिति बनती है, जो कि कार्यपालिका चाहती थी कि न्यायपालिका हमारे नियंत्रण में आ जाए। तो इसमें बड़ा जुडिशल ने अपना रोल दिखाया और देश की जनता को एक न्याय दिलाने का काम किया। तो ऐसे में न्यायपालिका अपने कर्तव्य से आंखें कैसे मूंद सकती है, जो ये लोग कहते हैं, मैं उनसे सवाल उठाता हूँ। अगर हाँ कोर्ट ने कोई अपनी ओर से कोई पहल की होती या दिलचस्पी लेत होती, चाहे सैट मिल्स की जालसाजी का मामला हो, झारखंड मुक्ति मोर्चा के सांसदों को रिश्वत का मामला हो, या चारा घोटाला का कोई भी मुकदमा हो, इसमें कोर्ट ने की पहल पर कोर्ट की पहल पर काम नहीं हुआ। तब सरकार ने ये मामले कोर्ट में लेकर के गई, खुद ही कोर्ट में उन्होंने पेश किया, और या जनता के किसी आदमी ने PIL डाली या कोई शिकायत हुई। अब इसमें कोर्ट क्या करती? कोर्ट क्या उसको न्याय नहीं करती? कोर्ट ने न्याय करा जो संविधान के अनुसार उनको न्याय दिया गया, और अपना रोल उन्होंने पूरा निभाया। अतः मैं नहीं समझता कि कोर्ट में जो लोग उंगली उठाते हैं और कानून की प्रक्रिया के तहत जो न्यूनतम अपेक्षित था वही हमारी जुडिशरी ने इस विषय में किया, और बरी करना होगा तो बरी किया। और जहां सरकार को आदेश देने का मामला था तो वहां उनने कोर्ट ने आदेश देने का भी काम किया, चाहे हाई कोर्ट के माध्यम से हो, चाहे सुप्रीम कोर्ट के माध्यम से हो, ये काम किया। और नागरिकों के अधिकारों की भी समय समय पर उन्हें रक्षा करी। किसी भी प्रकार देश की जनता को, हमारे देश की जनता जो कि तकलीफों में गुजर रही थी और भ्रष्टाचार और स्कैंडल पर स्कैंडल रोज खुलते जा रहे थे, इसमें किसी भी प्रकार का लोगों को लगा कि न्याय नहीं हो, इसमें किसी प्रकार की तकलीफ ना हो, और जनता को ऐसा हतप्रभ थी कि वो लुटा हुआ अपने को पा रही थी। इसमें शासन को सुचारू रूप से चलाने के लिए और सबको मौलिक अधिकार सुरक्षित रहने के लिए धर्म जाति के आधार पर विवाद न हो, इन सभी बातों का ध्यान भी हमारे संविधान निर्माताओं ने संविधान के बनाने पर रखा। और ये कहा गया कि जब भी संघ और स्टेट के बीच में झगड़ा होगा तो उसको न्यायपालिका निपटाएगी, और न्यायपालिका ने निपटाए बड़े आराम से। कई मामले हों, चाहे वो व्यवस्थापिका और ये इसके द्वारा सरकार को बर्खास्त करने का मामला हो, वहां पर भी हमारे उच्च न्यायालय ने बड़ा अच्छा निर्णय दिया। उसके बाद उच्चतम न्यायालय ने उसमें बहुत अच्छा निर्णय दिया। लेकिन इसे हम दुर्भाग्य मानेंगे कि स्वार्थ के लिए हमारे राजनेताओं ने संविधान को मनमर्जी से कई बार तोड़ने मरोड़ने का अपना इंटरप्रिटेशन करते हुए उसकी व्याख्या की, और कई मामलों में संविधान की भावना का भी उल्लंघन किया गया। यह न्यायपालिका ही थी जिसने कि देश की लाज रख ली। संविधान निर्माताओं ने विधायिका, कार्यपालिका और न्यायपालिका का गठन ही इसलिए किया था कि जनप्रतिनिधियों द्वारा बनाए कानूनों का फायदा जो जनता उठा सके, उसमें किसी प्रकार की अड़चन ना आए। ये सब भावना संविधान के अनुरूप है और न्यायपालिका की अपनी श्रद्धा के अनुरूप है। तो ये मैं इस प्रकार से माध्यम से कहूंगा कि आज जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डे है, जो हम वो क्या है चाहिए, जैसे कि लग रहा है बीच में कहीं मान लेंगे हाई कोर्ट के आने अनुसार लगेगी, लेकिन कोरोना में हम 20-21 साल से ये मामले कुछ ढीला पड़ रहा है, लेकिन आशा है कि जनता को जितने भी ज्यादा से ज्यादा हम शिक्षित कर सकेंगे पूरे देश को, चाहे वो हमारे छोटे वर्ग के लोग हों, लेबर क्लास के लोग हों, हमारे हरिजन भाई हों, इन सबको अपने अधिकारों का, संविधान में हमारे क्या अधिकार दिए हुए हैं इनको पता होगा, तो तभी लोकतंत्र भी सफल हो सकता है, जिसको कि बचाने की पूरी लाज हमारे जुडिशरी ने बचा के रखी है। हम पुनः इस मामले में जुडिशरी का मैं आभार व्यक्त करना चाहूंगा। धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू सो मच उमेश सर, हम आपके बहुत आभारी हैं और सदा आभारी रहेंगे कि आपने अपने बहुमूल्य समय में से हमको कुछ पल प्रदान किए और हमें इतनी गहन जानकारी प्रदान करी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की भावनाओं के बारे में और जुडिशरी के जो रोल हैं और जिस तरह से चीजें चली हैं और जिस तरह से चलनी चाहिए, जिस तरह से देश का विकास होना चाहिए। धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। हम और वासुदेव कॉलेज ऑफ लॉ आपका सदैव आभारी रहेगा। थैंक यू सर। और इन शब्दों के साथ मैं इनवाइट करना चाहूंगा इमरान सर को। मिस्टर इमरान सर काइंडली, लग रहा है कि आ चुके हैं, हमारे साथ जुड़ चुके हैं। मैं उनको इनवाइट करना चाहूंगा अपना एड्रेस देने के लिए और अपने विचार रखने के लिए इस हमारे आज के टॉपिक इन प्रिजर्विंग द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज पर। इमरान सर, क्या आप हमें सुन पा रहे हैं?
मैडम उसे बंद करो वहाँ पर।
इमरान सर,
प्रतीक सर, हेलो प्रतीक सर, कैन यू हियर मी?
यस सर, आई कैन।
इमरान सर को सिर्फ 2 से 4 मिनट लगेंगे, 2 मिनट लगेंगे ज्वाइन करने में। जस्ट गिविंग अ कपल ऑफ मिनट्स। आई वुड जस्ट request you to give a small brief English में बता सकते हैं, if you can explain the things that were said.
Imran sir will be taking some 4-5 minutes to join us.
Couple of minutes.
Till then I would like to brief you or discuss with you a certain question, like a basic question. We have a lot of students with us. Okay, Imran sir is here with us. Imran sir, kindly take over the stage. Welcome sir.
I don't think so.
Imran sir, kindly unmute your mic.
Everybody.
Good afternoon sir.
Good afternoon. It's good to have Sharik and Kartike bhai also there. I hope they are listening. A very good afternoon and a very happy Constitution Day to all. The topic of today's discussion is very relevant in the present times. And you all know that how Constitution was made and all the process, but I will not take much of your time. I will come directly to the topic. Whenever this word value comes to our mind, few concepts of life like honesty and other principles come to our mind. Basically, beliefs guide or motivate our conduct. In the same way, we have constitutional values. Constitutional values are imbibed in the Constitution of India. In fact, in the whole of the Constitution. But the preamble of the Constitution, am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible. Yes, sir. You are audible. Kindly continue.
Okay. But the constitutional values are reflected in whole of the constitution, but the preamble sets out some basic values like secularism, socialism, human dignity, the republic character of our country, the democracy, the liberties and all. Apart from that, there is a concept called constitutionalism, and we have got rule of law, independent judiciary, and free and fair elections. So these are few of the constitutional values which judiciary has been upholding from time the constitution has been adopted in our country. And if you take, for example, the case of Minerva Mill, in this case, Justice Bhagwati in his minority judgment has said that it is for the judiciary to uphold the constitutional values and to enforce the constitutional limitations. Because if the organs of the state like executive and legislature are working in such a fashion that there is no limitation to their power, then somebody has to put a check on their power that they work according to the rule of law and according to the constitutional spirit. And they have to equally take care of the part 3rd and part 4A of the constitution, which is equally important as far as constitutional values are concerned, because part 4A, in fact, talks about various values which a citizen should have. Few values which the state should adopt and few values which the state should have. That is, citizens should have, adopt in their life, they are given in part 4A. And apart from that, if you take the role of the Honorable Supreme Court in protecting the constitutional values, then we can talk about various judgments like Hussain Ara Khatun and Menka Gandhi case and Sunil Batra case. And there are many judgments of Supreme Court where the Supreme Court has upheld the constitutional values time and again. Not just the rights of the normal citizens, Supreme Court has upheld the right of the prisoners in all these cases. Apart from that, not just 1 second. Hello, मैं भी आ रहा हूँ बस. हाँ, मैं भी आ रहा हूँ बस. Apart from that, Supreme Court has upheld also the right of choice, the right of transgenders, right of disabled, in fact, the reputation of individuals. All these things the Honorable Court has done. And it is not just that, and that Supreme Court has been doing day in and day out. Because if Supreme Court fails to take up this challenge, then there will be no check on the powers of the executive or legislature. So we need to have a independent judiciary, a vibrant judiciary, which can uphold the constitution and the constitutional values, because constitutional values are as such not defined, but they have to be upheld. Then only we can say that in spirit we are working according to the constitution. Because I just want to say that because the constitution is so important that if we take the example of the neighboring country, the difference which makes them, the difference which is there is only the constitution, because they have not followed their constitution. In fact, they have drafted 3-4 constitutions in last more than 70 years. And whereas we in India, we have one constitution and it has been flexible and rigid at the same time, though we have more than 100 amendments, but we have been able to run our country according to the constitution, and the judiciary has to be given a due credit for that. Judiciary has come a long way from the A.K. Gopalan to Menka Gandhi and various other cases, many landmark cases. Recently, this privacy judgment was also given. So there are many cases. So nothing is perfect, though, there are many issues which can be debated, but on a whole, I might appear to be biased also because I am myself a part of a judicial fraternity. But I think that quite fair job has been done by the higher courts, high courts, and Supreme Court. So actually, I don't have much time. I've got a meeting to attend. So I excuse myself. If you have any issue, you can 1 or 2 minutes you have got. If you want to ask anything, you can discuss. And Sharik, how are you?
I'm fine.
Hello.
I'm fine.
I'm good.
Blessings.
So I want to ask the participants if they want to have a discussion any issue, or should I take a leave?
I request if any of the participants have any questions, they can put it forward.
Sir, I think we'll be taking the questions at the end of the session. But then again,
Okay,
sir, we are
okay,
very thankful.
okay.
We are very thankful to
Thanks a
you
lot.
for
Thanks a lot.
being with us. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And like it was like,
Thank-
even though you were having little time, but you were able to find time for us. We are very thankful. Thank you so much, sir.
Now, I would like to invite Abhimanyu Gandhi, sir, to convey his views on the topic, the role of judiciary in preserving the constitutional values in India. Mr. Gandhi, sir, please take over the stage.
Just give me a second, guys.
Mr. Gandhi, sir,
Small
to take over the
adjustment.
stage.
Yeah, just a small adjustment I need to make. Give me a second. Just give me a second. I hope you guys are able to see me as well. I hope you are able to have
Yes,
my
sir.
video, and my voice is also audible, I believe.
Yes, sir, you are audible. Kindly continue.
Okay. So there is a small quote that I would like to present to you before bringing what I have in my mind about this particular topic. There is this a small quote that was given by Susie Kasim when she said that if we want truth and justice to rule our global village, there must be no hypocrisy. If there is no truth, then there will be no equality. No equality, no justice. No justice, no peace. No love, no peace, no love. And no love, then only darkness. What we are going through in the current times is we're facing an unprecedented situation when it comes to COVID crisis, and along with that, we are also facing political, I would say, a sort of a question mark on the state structure itself. There have been numerous times that we are seeing people coming out expressing their deep discontent against the institution of judiciary and other institution of the states. But today we are just focusing on the judiciary and what role does it have to preserve the constitution and its values. As we have gone through, you have listened to many other speakers sitting here who have given their views, and they were like excellent. I was able to learn a lot of things. But you must also figure out that our constitutional values have always been under one sort of or a different sort of a crisis. When I'm saying it as a crisis, I'm just making a remark that there is a question mark on the status of whether the constitutional value will prevail or not. But if 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 it comes to the two of the darkest phases of the judiciary that I have seen or that I have heard about or I've read about is one was the time of the emergency, which was quoted by Mr. Sharik as well, and then he pointed out that our judges and our Supreme Court, which was under the immense pressure of executive was trying to make like pressurize Supreme Court for certain decisions and respect to certain cases like the habeas corpus case called famously known the habeas corpus case, or one would say ADM Jabalpur case. But the other darkest moment that I encounter when it comes to judiciary is today. It might sound a little offensive and might sound a little bit critical about the judiciary, but what we are witnessing today is today in context of judiciary is something that is equally, if I won't say more, uh, tough times for tough times than in comparison to what we were seeing during the emergency. I hope everybody remembers what happened last year when four of the judges of the Supreme Court, like four of the senior most judges of the Supreme Court, came in front of the Supreme Court, held an open press conference, and they had their own problems regarding the master of roster and other position in regard to the Chief Justice. We were it was assured to us through various mediums, either by registrar or by registry of the Supreme Court or by different methods that were used by the Supreme Court, that the transparency will be brought into the process. But what we have encountered within the last 1.5 years or 2 years after that press conference is that one of the judges has retired. The other judge other justice is went to Rajya Sabha as a nominated member. The other judge is right now the Chief Justice. So what we are facing is that the transparency that was promised to us 2 years back, or the questions or the crisis that was brought forward in front of us, the fractures of the system that was brought forward in front of us, nothing has been done on that area, I believe. I will not be taking much time, but I will just want to point out towards certain important things that the was expected. When it comes to like the COVID crisis, the COVID crisis not only brought forward the problems in our medical system or our state structure or our executive in implementing the relief work for the people. It also showed us the apathy of the state institutions toward many poor and needy and destitute. I remember when it was in one of the hearings of the Supreme Court on the matters of migrant workers, the question of the judge to the appearing lawyer was that whether if these people are getting food to eat, what do they need money for? The question was this. I might even not put out the whole context about it, and one might say that you are just missing the context. The question was not in this context per se, but it showed that there needed to be a hearing for granting the relief to the migrant workers who have been walking for hundreds of kilometers back to their home, who were trying to walk 200 of their back to their homes, but still the judge of the court wanted to know that why do they need money for if they have enough food. And that was a breaking point for me. I believe that when I was not happy, or I became more critical about the judiciary. And many other times the personal liberty, which is also one of the most important aspects of our constitutional value, which is given to us under Article 21 and as a right to personal liberty and freedom. I was not able to I was able to see a good amount of inconsistency in how the judiciary or how the Supreme Court was taking up the matters in relation to that upholding of personal liberty, because one must remember that there are many important petitions that the Supreme Court, that it has been raised by many of the big Supreme Court lawyers, that there are many petitions that are still waiting to be heard in the Supreme Court, but Supreme Court judges or the Supreme Court registry has not listed them. And this is one of the points where more important constitutional matters which were supposed to be heard were not given due importance. Like I would like to quote the case of Mehbooba Mufti, the ex-chief minister of Jammu and Kashmir, who was detained by the state as a protective detention rule. And when the habeas corpus plea was filed in the Supreme Court, till the time its hearing came upon, the woman was let go free after 1 year. And this shows that for 1 year, the person who has already applied for habeas corpus petition didn't get an opportunity to be heard. And the state released her, lied on affidavits, but still nothing was done. In that respect, we have also seen the judiciary upholding very important personal liberty case recently of a renowned journalist, where the renowned journalist was granted relief in a habeas corpus plea. But on the same day, in the same court, the Supreme Court, but not on the same bench, one of the other petitions that was being heard was that a person, I would say, quote unquote, urban Naxal, was applying in the Supreme Court for in a petition that he needed a straw to drink water from because he cannot drink water because he's having some problem in his throat. And that shows the amount of apathy and the amount of I would say bias in listing of cases, one might say, but or also one might say that it's inconsistency, altogether an inconsistency which judiciary shows in listing of the cases and listening of the cases in modern pleas. The many important issues like electoral bonds, cases related to electoral bonds where political democracy or free and fair elections are all into questions. Free and fair elections demand that the financial fair play is also done with the political parties, and they are not able to get the money. One party is not able to have monopoly over the election expenditure money. But electoral bonds work perfect, and when the cases were brought against electoral bonds, the PIL and public interest litigation regarding that aspect, those cases are not being heard. This shows that I won't say this shows, but this gives us a view that judiciary has some important cases to hear. There might be some might say that we have a large amount of cases that are pending in our own Supreme Court, and we are not able to hear the Supreme Court cannot hear all the cases. But my question is different. My question is that how do we view the Supreme Court? What is the role of the Supreme Court? If you go by the normal language, normal words of those, but how Supreme Court works, it's just a custodian of rights. It's just a custodian of rights, and it's a custodian of our constitutional values. But I remember Aaron Barak, he was a famous judge from Supreme Court of Israel. He once said that it's not just that judges are only here to decide the disputes, or are only able to decide whether the laws are consistent or not. He said that judges are here to drive the change in the society. What they say and what they do will put a large shadow on the society as well, and how the society will function after that particular judgment. I see judges or the Supreme Court not taking altogether a proactive approach. I remember Umesh Joshi sir mentioning us judicial activism, and he said that okay, judiciary was becoming highly active during the times of Mr. Bhagwati and later, and judiciary should have stayed in its limit as well. But what do we expect from the judiciary? My expectation from judiciary is that judges who are supposedly supposed to be independent, who are supposed to be custodians of the constitution and the constitutional values, the judges who are supposed to be working for the betterment of the people, when they don't use the power they have, when they put the fetters on their own powers, I believe that is also a big problem. That is also one thing that judiciary should not be indulging in. Judiciary should be able to drive a change if it feels necessary for the society to listen to it. And We have seen judiciary doing it time and time again when it comes to Vishakha case judgment or other important judgment where the guidelines have been passed by the Supreme Court to work in certain accordance. But that is not the case. The case very much important is that judiciary should not be fettering its own powers. Another point that I want to put forward is the recent contempt petitions that have been brought in front of the Supreme Court in case of criminal contempt that have been brought in front of the Supreme Court. Like it's been just some weeks back that we were listening to Prashant Bhushan's contempt case in regard to where he made a particularly, one would say, defamatory tweet towards the Chief Justice of India. Today, we are hearing that one of the comedians is being dragged to the court for making remarks on the judiciary, and ASG has given the permission for this for the prosecution of that particular comedian. I believe that okay, the contempt rule is very important, and contempt should be heard, but the criminal contempt is not that important as much as civil contempt. I hope people understand what is the difference between criminal contempt and the civil contempt. Criminal contempt means that if you're trying to drain away the confidence of people in the judiciary, or if you are trying to undermine the judiciary in any way, then you will be charged with a criminal contempt, and that includes going to jail and everything. But when it comes to civil contempt means when you are not able to implement the judgment of the Supreme Court or the High Court, then it entertains a civil contempt. For criminal contempt, I would tell you that there are only 400 to 500 matters that are totally pending in Supreme Court, maybe less than 200, I believe. But when it comes to civil contempt, there are more than 19,000 matters that are standing in that are not being decided by the Supreme Court in respect to the civil contempt. So I believe that judiciary does not have to be loud enough and put people in jail to prove that they are still honorable enough, and that that the people should trust them, or their impact on the society will increase. I believe that it is important for the judiciary to make sure that whatever the judgment they are giving, and they are also implemented on the ground, so that the people are given relief. That way, the trust towards the judiciary will be I would say, well more balanced and well more established. Not to say it will not be based upon putting people in jail or fear. So this is what our expectations are from the judiciary, to take a proactive role in protecting the personal liberty of people, not to get offended by small tweets, and rather implement, or rather ask the state or the state authorities to implement those judgments that have been given by it. I believe that Supreme Court is something that is an institution that can drive our society for a better society. But according to current times, I would say that the times are not that bright. We might see a little bit of dark, but we need to understand that till the time judiciary doesn't takes a proactive approach and starts upholding the personal liberty of all the people and not just some people, because consistency is also one of the important features that should be seen in the judgments of the judges. Consistency should also be seen in the behavior of the Supreme Court as well. Then everybody should be given a right to get justice, and everybody should be given a right to present a particular case in front of the Supreme Court. But many of the under trials stay in jail for more than 6 months, and they never 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, then they never are able to get their case be heard by the judge, even in a lower court or even in a higher court. So I believe that judiciary should take up a proactive role, should start driving the change what they believe is important in the society, and I think we'll be doing fine, and thankful to Prateek sir for this opportunity. Thank you so much, sir. I'll be handing that mic to Prateek sir back again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abhimanyu sir, and for your perspectives and portrayed before us in this regard. And you have been very brave and frank to speak some of the points. Now, I think Mr. Kartikeya sir is not joining us because of some prior commitments and some time in the court, because the courts are not off today, so he's working, and therefore I would like to conclude this webinar, and I would like to thank all of our speakers, Mr. Imran Muhammad Khan sir, thank you. Mr. Sharik Ahmed sir, thank you. Mr. Umesh Joshi sir, thank you. Mr. Abhimanyu Gandhi sir, thank you. Mr. Sakti Singh sir, thank you. Now I would like to ask the chairman of Vasudev College of Law, the chief organizer, to take over the floor and deliver the vote of thanks. Mr. Chandrasekhar Joshi sir, kindly take on.
थैंक यू प्रतीक सर. आज इस संविधान दिवस पर एक वेबिनार का आयोजन किया गया, जिसमें हमारे मोहम्मद इमरान सर, सिविल जज सीनियर डिवीजन और डिस्ट्रिक्ट लीगल सर्विस अथॉरिटी सेक्रेटरी, सारिक अहमद सर सुप्रीम कोर्ट से, कार्तिकेय हरिगुप्ता जी आज कोर्ट में अपनी व्यस्तता के कारण से हमसे नहीं जुड़ पाए, मिस्टर शक्ति सिंह एडवोकेट हाई कोर्ट, मिस्टर उमेश जोशी जी सीनियर मेंबर परमानेंट लोक अदालत, प्रतीक द्विवेदी जी, अभिमन्यु गांधी सर. आज इन सबके विचारों से हम रूबरू हुए और संविधान दिवस के अवसर पर हम चाहेंगे कि आगे को भी हम इस सीरीज को चालू रखें, इसको जारी रखें, और इसमें जितने भी हमारे आज वक्ता थे, हम उनसे इन फ्यूचर में भी चाहेंगे कि हमें इसी तरीके का सहयोग प्राप्त होता रहे, जिसके लिए वासुदेव कॉलेज ऑफ लॉ आपका आभारी है. मैं पुनः सारे श्रोताओं को और सारे वक्ताओं को पुनः धन्यवाद दूंगा तथा संविधान दिवस की शुभकामनाएं देते हुए आज इस सभा को समाप्त करूं. धन्यवाद.
Thank you, Joshi sir. Now we would be concluding this, and I would I will be closing this session. Thank you so much. Always support us in our endeavors and future endeavors. We will be back to you with other webinars very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.